Hi, I'm Lorraine Kelly from loz'sart.com. This is my second video and it's on watercolours and overlay technique to make the painting look a little bit less digital. So I'm going to import an image that I've previously done. It will import the dimensions that I had previously exported this image in. So if you're wanting to change the dimensions of your picture, you can do that by going into View, into Edit, Resize Painting, and I use print size because that shows you what the actual size of the painting can be printed out in, and I usually do 300 or 400 pixels because that gives you a bit of leeway. Now I'm looking at the canvas settings. It was transparent, so now I'm going to add in a canvas so that you can get some interesting effects with your watercolor brushes. I'm going to give a rough canvas because I just think it makes it a little bit more interesting. So if you zoom in here, you can see that now it has a canvas look. So now I'll add a layer and I'll put the new layer underneath my drawing so that it will show the lines when you paint. I don't want to paint over the lines, and I'm going to do wet on wet first, and that will give you a good solid colour. I'm choosing a green here for my leaves, and because eucalypts are normally a very yellowy green, I'll move down on the yellow side of the spectrum for the green. And then in samples, you can clear previous samples and then add a new sample, and it's always a good idea to name them so that you remember whereabouts you used it on the painting. If you do lots of colours, sometimes you forget which one's which if you use similar colours. So wet on wet, you see it does a nice solid colour. I was painting on the original drawing then, and so that merged in with the black lines because it was wet on wet, so the colours merge in together. So now I've put it on a separate layer so that it does a solid colour, because I didn't want it to go a muddy colour with the black line. And now I'm going to paint a second leaf, and then I will choose a darker colour and use the same layer to show you the effects that the different brushes can achieve. So I'm adding that to my sample tray. So I think of the samples like your palette, your colour palette that you can always go back to. If you forget to save your colour, you can always use the colour picker, but I don't find it's really accurate. Sometimes it gives you a different colour. So this is wet on wet, and like a wet brush on a wet canvas, it won't let out a lot of colour necessarily. So if you're wanting more solid colour, you would choose a different brush. So I'm going to try Delicate on Dry, and because it's dry, it's actually taking off some of the colour, and you're seeing the canvas underneath. That's why it's looking grey. Wasn't too happy with that. This is Dried Strokes, and I like this one because it actually does give a good watercolour look. Gives it a bit of a texture to the colours. It makes it look less digital. Not a smooth blending, which is what I like. And so Dry on Wet, that gives another nice solid colour look. And so now, this is what I recommend you do, is just go through and experiment with the different brushes. And see, just add water. That's taking the colour off like it would do if you're using a wet brush. Unclean brush will keep the colours on your brush until you dip it in the water bottle, which is there near the colour picker. So if you're wondering what that little water thing's for, that's for when you're using the dirty brush. You see auto clean on the settings. That's what that does. It automatically cleans your brush after you lift it off the canvas. See, now it's ticked on auto clean, so you will always get a clean brush. If you want a dirty brush look to merge your colours in, you just uncheck that. So now we've got dry on wet. And I'm going to use delicate on dry because I think that merges it in. No, I didn't like that one because it added the grey. So I'll try again, wet on wet. Now the heavy bleed, it seems to work nice with long strokes like that. And with different colours you can get all different effects. So you can imagine if you had a few layers of colours, I think if you had yellow underneath that would probably work nicely. So now for the final one. Oh no, it's not. I didn't think this was giving a good blended look. So I decided to use dried strokes because I think that gives a really nice effect. And then adding in, blending the line out with the hard wet blender. So you don't need to use a lot of blending. If you blend too much you can get rid of the stroke lines, which sort of defeats the purpose of using the dried strokes brush. Now I'm adding in a highlight colour. And I was quite happy with that effect. Save the highlight colour for using it later on further leaves. Now I'm showing adding different layers in with watercolour, and often I like to put a lighter colour underneath and then slowly add layers on of darker colours. So first I'll start with yellow because it is a yellowy green that I have chosen. Then on the original layer I'm painting on the green, so the yellow is underneath the green. And then to blend you can use a soft eraser. I think that often works better than a lot of the blenders. Now add in another colour. I'm using heavy bleed this time. And so now you see the yellow is showing a little bit through on the corner of the leaf, and then you can leave it mostly showing on the highlighted area. Hard wet blender to blend it in on that layer. And you see when I hid the yellow, the effect that it has. Now this is still on the green layer. I've added a third green. And I've moved that light green underneath, so it's sort of hidden now. So you can see by experimenting with different colours, different layers, using the eraser and blending, you can get some really interesting techniques with the watercolour brush. I love using the watercolour because it can give a lot of depth and different colours. Now I'm going to show you the overlay technique to give some texture to your painting so that it looks a bit less digital, and it can give some random effects as well. Now I'm loading my bacon and egg painting, which was a very large file. I had it set on a large file because I thought I might want to print it poster size, so my computer really struggles with it, unfortunately. So we just wait for it to load. These little bacon and egg flowers are in the bush opposite my house, and they're flowering again at the moment. I did this painting, must have been this time last year. So there we go, there's my finished painting. So the top layer was the overlay, which I'm going to show you. So when that's hidden away, you see the painting gets a lot smoother. There's my outline layer, my painting layer, which I did in watercolour paints, and you see the background layer. And I erased out a lot of the background where the flower was because I didn't want it coming through and affecting the yellow. So now I'm going to import image to file layer to get your overlay texture. I often use stone textures or watercolour pictures. You see the watercolour ones there. So this one, this chosen it was either a granite or a bark. I think it was a granite. So that's the top layer. You put it on, then you go blend mode, overlay. The computer's taken a while to do it, and there you go. You see it goes transparent and adds the texture behind, and it alters the colour of some of the areas of the painting, and that's what I like about it. It gives a bit of randomness to it. And then you can erase parts if you don't like how it changed the colour. So here I'm just using a hard edged eraser, and you see the original colour of the flowers coming back. So that's, now I'm hiding the one I just did and showing the original overlay that I used. Have to excuse me, the computer was quite slow. Now I'll show you a different texture. This one's carpet, and you'll see it gives a completely different effect because it's a more sort of uniform texture. So you can see how you have a lot of fun playing with overlays. So if you look here, it's all bubbly with the carpet texture. And then if you can erase parts of it so that the flower looks like a flower again, and you could leave the bubbly texture as a background and part of the flower. I liked how it looked with the white highlights. So then you can use instant eraser and a hard edged eraser just to blend it in a bit so you don't have the solid sort of line there. And there we go. That's overlays, which I use all the time so that it looks a little less digital, as I said before. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you had, please like and subscribe because I will be doing some more in the future. Thank you.